Hi, my name is Michal LeBaron. I am the owner and founder of Integrity Wellness Worldwide. Today I'm going to be talking to you about what is our functional approach. What does this term functional mean? Then how does it differ from other conventional models of medicine and even other holistic and alternatives? There's a lot out there today and a lot of it's not working. And so the functional model is really been developed and created worldwide to really get to the root cause of what's going on and not just provide band-aid solutions or not just provide trial and error guessing, home remedy type of holistic, alternatives for people. So I'm really excited to share this with you. It is the core model and approach, a way of thinking that we bring to each and every case, whether we're dealing with physical chronic illness, mental chronic illness, or other emotional issues. So what I'm going to first talk to you about is, what is functional not, right? So it is not conventional medicine. And in conventional or standard medicine, the goal is to be able to diagnose disease. So it's all about a diagnosis. And there's two ways that we go about diagnosing. One is what we like to call the real diagnosis. And these are based in tests, okay? There's like lab tests, there's a real science, and when you get a diagnosis that we like to call real, of course we take any diagnosis as real, but what we like to call real is that it was based in lab tests, and that tells us a specific physiology of what's going on. An example would be MS. When you're diagnosed with MS, it means that you are autoimmune and your immune system is attacking a part of your nervous system. Okay, and so when you get that diagnosis, it's because there was a specific test run and those test results came back positive, and that showed that this is indeed what's going on and what's causing your symptoms, of nerve pain and the like. The second way in our clinic we like to call the fake diagnosis. Again, we take all diagnoses seriously and we consider them all real, but for the purpose of our internal, language, we call them a fake diagnosis because there was no tests done, right? They basically take a set of symptoms and they are able to label you with a certain name or diagnosis based on a set of symptoms. So does it tell us why you have those symptoms? No. Does it tell us any new information about what's going on physically in your body? No. It's just you had enough symptoms to fit this criteria, and we're going to put a new label on it. An example of this would be fibromyalgia. There's no lab tests. They still consider fibromyalgia as something that we just don't know the known cause for. There's no real solid treatments in the medical community. It's kind of one of those mystery illnesses that we hope we can improve, in some ways. So let's talk about the real tests. These are based in numbers that aren't the same across the board. What I mean by that is we run lab tests and different than they were about 100 years ago. And so one of the things that changed in the last 100 years is, when you get your blood tested, and then you have this reference range, it's called, of what is considered normal, right? So you have your results and you have what they're compared to, and then you have whether it's high or low based on what they're supposed to be. Well, those reference ranges of what they're supposed to be have changed in the last 100 years, which either means that science has gotten better, right? And we've learned more information, or it means that, something's changed because human physiology hasn't changed in the last 100 years, right? So what they actually started doing is they started running averages of everyone who gets their blood drawn in a specific clinic or in a specific region. And now those reference ranges of what normal is are compared to these averages of who gets their blood tested the most. And so these reference ranges aren't even the same from clinic to clinic or doctor to doctor. We've had clients, this was early on before we could run our own labs, and I told this woman, you have every thyroid symptom in the book. We know this is a thyroid issue. Go to your doctor, ask for these thyroid tests. The doctor ran the thyroid test and told her, you are completely normal. There's nothing I can do for you. Your thyroid is normal. We said, there's no way. His averages, probably didn't pick up that you have a thyroid issue. Go to a different doctor, have your blood retested, tell us what's going on. So, she went same week to a different doctor, had her same blood. It was the same week, right? Retested. And this doctor was 2 miles away from the old doctor. His clinic was only 2 miles away. And he, based on his reference ranges, was able to diagnose her with a full-blown disease and prescribe her medication. So the way that the lab tests are run and these reference ranges of what are considered normal today are not what they were 100 years ago. And 100 years ago, they were backed based in science and textbooks and literature of what optimal was supposed to be. What are we supposed to see in our blood work, not averages. And it was the same across the board. Differences maybe for men or women, maybe for children or adults, but that's it. So our numbers, when we use functional ranges, are mirror about what they were 100 years ago, and they're the same across the board. And if you think about what these averages are today, they're of whoever gets their blood drawn the most. So who gets their blood drawn the most? If you think about it, it's, who needs to go see the doctor? Sick people, right? The elderly, right? We're all supposed to go get our blood tested about once a year, but we don't do that. The elderly do that because, they're experiencing more issues and they're more concerned about the effects of aging. And one other category is in the top third who gets their blood tested the most, and that is people who are already on meds, on medications, because they have to monitor their levels very closely. So when the doctor tells you that according to that reference range, you're normal, what we like to say is, well, that's compared to sick, medicated, and elderly. Is that the normal that you want to be? We don't think so. According to this model, you won't get diagnosed and you won't get treated unless if you are in a disease range, okay? So their period or path of what they consider normal is very large. And you're normal until you have a major disease. And the problem with this is diseases actually take years to develop. It's not something that happens overnight. It's not a switch that you just turn on. And in every single case, there are always warning signs. There are symptoms that you have leading up to what they would be able to diagnose as disease. It's still an imbalance. So we know that there's multiple stages before disease is able to be diagnosed. There's always symptoms present. So a lot of people are already aware of this model and that it's failing them. Either they can't get a diagnosis because they're told they're normal even though they have symptoms, or they do have a diagnosis and they've been prescribed medications, right? They've had the surgery, they've done the radiation, right, or chemo, or whatever the medical treatment is once they have a full-blown disease, but they still don't feel well. So a lot of people are sick of and fed up with this model when it's not working. And they go into holistic, right? Holistic or alternative approach, style, treatment, diet, whatever that is. So for a long time, we started researching what is this holistic model. We're very open-minded. We need to find other alternatives. Conventional isn't working. Well, unfortunately, the success rate inside of holistic or alternative medicine is actually not much better. And it works for some of the people, some of the time. And when you inquire as to why it's working for one but not for another, there seems to be no answers. And that's not good enough for us. That's why we continued researching and found a functional approach about 10 years ago and implemented it into our practice. So the holistic model typically does not come with tests. Need I emphasize how scary that is? But, the cool part is they do pay attention to symptoms. So they do not wait until you're in full-blown disease before they're going to do something about it. They're also not just going to cut or snip or, slap a medication on it. They're really looking at the body as a whole. They're saying, there really has to be something going on here. We need all parts of our body. How can we support the body to heal itself? So there's some really great parts to a holistic mindset. And like I said, a lot of it works a lot of the time for a lot of the people, or we should say some, but there are people that it doesn't work for. And those are a good fit for us. You know, if they have tried everything, conventional, holistic, they've tried this diet, they've been to 10 different doctors. That was my story. Nobody knows what's wrong. They've tried these supplements, these oils, you know, they've tried a bunch of stuff and it's still not working. That's a perfect fit for us because, you know, we work where these models fail. I like to say we excel where they fail. So they do pay attention to symptoms, but a lot of the approach is just based in whatever holistic remedy or approach or modality or therapy that they know about, right? So there's hundreds of them, right? There's herbs and there's a million different diets, right? And there's a million different MLM supplements, right? There's, you know, chiropractic, there's massage, there's yoga. You know, what do people swear by? Oh my gosh, my essential oils are, you know, everything. They cured me. You know, there's a thing about magnesium being the main mineral that's a cure-all. There's like water filters and special water things because it's the water that's making us all ill. You know, you really could just keep going. There's hundreds of thousands of natural remedies. Like I said, some of them, they've got amazing testimonials, but they don't work for everybody. And my question is, you know, how do you know that that's the holistic remedy that you need? How do you know? And most people are like, oh, I never thought, I don't know. You know, and the same question, did the conventional doctor ever tell you why you have these symptoms? Or did the conventional doctor ever tell you why you have this condition or this diagnosis? No, you know, nobody ever thinks about that. So, you know, there is certainly limits to these models, and certainly this isn't new. I'm sure this is ringing a bell to a lot of you. And so, you know, what is different about us? You know, what is this functional approach and why does it excel when these others fail? Functional, you know, before we go into trying to seek a diagnosis or trying to provide the proper remedy, we're in the conversation, like I said, of why. Why is this happening? What's going on? You know, we understand physiology. We should be able to figure this out. We're like the health detectives. So before we even run tests, we're in the question of why, and we're in the question of what is the root cause. And there's several layers, right? The root cause is this. Well, what's causing that? The root cause of this. So what's causing that? So before we even run tests, we are in a conversation of what tests do we need to run. And we're typically about 5 times more comprehensive than a medical doctor on their first standard blood test. And the reason is because we're not just looking for major signs of disease that we can diagnose. What we're looking for are any signs of imbalance that would be contributing to symptoms, because that's what we care about, is your quality of life and that you get a remission of symptoms. So we first run the tests, and like I said, we use a functional ranges. And these are based in science textbooks, you know, the literature about what is considered optimal. What should it be? And when I talk about optimal, that's going to mean symptom-free, okay? So if there are symptoms, you know, we have a much narrower range of what normal is, because if there are symptoms, it means we're getting outside of what normal or optimal is, right? It means that we're going in the wrong direction. We're going towards disease. So even if that's years down the road, you know, we want to prevent that, right? We want you to age gracefully. You know, we want you to have a quality of life all your life and know how to maintain that. So we use functional ranges, and if you're outside of a functional range, you may not be able to get a diagnosis. You might not have disease, but you are having a sign of imbalance that, if left unattended to, I guess, you know, will actually, you know, it will continue to get worse, and eventually you probably would be diagnosed with a disease and prescribed a medication, a surgery, something like that. So first we run the tests. We're very, very comprehensive. And, you know, I'll give you some examples of why this is more comprehensive, you know, down the line when we talk about our practical example. But once we run the test, once we figure out what specifically is going on, what is that root cause, we are actually able to know what specifically, you know, would make a difference for the root cause. You know, if it's structural, you need structural healing. If it's mental, you need emotional or psychological help, you know, with stress management, for example. If it is, something that requires a medication, then we will know specifically which one to get. So, even, if you're depressed, a lot of times when they prescribe antidepressants, it's not because they've done the test on what neurotransmitter or brain chemical is off. It's because they're trying different medications out to see how you do. Well, that's just not our approach. That's not good enough for us. So we would actually figure out, why are you depressed? Is it physical? Is it a brain chemical? Is it lack of vitamin D? For example, as your adrenals are fatigued, is it that your brain is inflamed because there's inflammation going on in your body? And then we are able to specifically tailor our approach to whatever condition is going on. So it's really awesome because, we're not selling an herb. We're not selling a diet. We're not selling a supplement. We're not selling a specific technique or modality. Our toolbox is ever expanding, and we have a lot of tools in our toolbox after 10 years. It's really about taking each person as a unique case and being able to use the model, the functional model, to figure out what's going on and what specifically is going to work for that person. And so every person is actually going to have a unique program with us. And I love it because it works, and what's cool is if it's not working, we're in the conversation of why. What is the root cause of why it's not working? How can we change it up? What other tests can we run? How can we solve this, right? So we're in it for the long haul with each person. And our goal, is that, regardless of how long your program is, most clients work with us for 3 to 6 months, sometimes longer if they have a lot of issues going on or if there's multiple people in their family that need to take this on. And, at the end of your care, we call it graduation. We actually graduate our clients because they are equipped for life. We don't want them dependent upon us. Inside of our programs, we teach and educate and train how to think about it, what's going on, what to do to solve the problem, and how to maintain results for life so that our clients, are like their own doctor for themselves, And if something happens down the road, of course, we're here to support them. But they are really able to maintain these results for the rest of their life. And often they know more than their medical doctor about their own health care. They go to their doctor for the once a year checkup and they say, well, these are the labs I need run because of X and X, XYZ reason. And the doctors are like, oh, wow, okay, I've got to look into that, So I'm really excited about what we do. It works. We're committed to each person as a unique individual and figuring out what they need and what's going to work best for them. Our model, integrity wellness, right? Integrity means workability. And so even if we have the ideal plan, but it's too overwhelming, it's not cost effective, or they don't have structures in life to be able to follow a program that's strict, for example, we actually have a team behind them to help them with that. So, even when we find the ideal plan, we're constantly working to create a workable way for the client to integrate that into their life and to follow through on the program. So we have a team of practitioners worldwide who, everything from life coaching and counseling to, nutritionists to, the gamut is very wide. We are able to narrow in on these different, whatever the needs of the client are. So let's talk for a few more minutes about what is a good example so we can get some practical application to this. What I like to talk about is thyroid issues. Thyroid issues, main thyroid symptoms are, fatigue, headaches in the morning, thinning hair, they can't lose weight, they can't sleep, and/or they have heart palpitations and sweat all the time, like they're almost overactive. These symptoms are very common today. And so the likelihood of somebody having these symptoms because of a thyroid issue is also very high. And so in the conventional model, they do run tests, but they typically run only 1 to 3 tests. And if those 1 to 3 tests come out disease, they'll be prescribed meds. If those 1 to 3 tests come back, not outside of lab range, then they'll tell them that they're normal and we should, keep an eye on it. It's probably not a thyroid issue. So the problem is that they've done a lot of studies and they're actually showing in the last 10 years that 90% of women don't feel better on thyroid hormones. that means 9 out of 10 people don't feel better with the treatment for thyroid. That doesn't make sense. Something's not working, right? They've also, other studies in the last 10 years have confirmed that 90% of thyroid issues are actually autoimmune. And that would actually make sense of why, the 90% of women don't feel better on thyroid hormones. Most women, more women than men, have thyroid issues. So a lot of the studies have been done around women. And so, if 90% of the issues are actually a problem of the immune system, then that would make sense why thyroid hormones wouldn't make a difference. So these are some of the medical statistics, right? In the holistic approach, they typically don't do tests, right? And they offer the standard natural support, I guess, are supplements that contain iodine is the number one in there. Other minerals like selenium and glandulars. There's some other things, but typically these are in the thyroid support from a holistic practitioner. And, they say because iodine's needed to make thyroid hormones, selenium's needed, glandulars is animal tissue that actually, like animal thyroid tissue, for example, that would have, like thyroid in it, would like stimulate your thyroid. So this is the standard holistic approach, I should say. And, there aren't as many studies done around the holistic stuff, but, you survey practitioners and, they're telling you like, oh, another thyroid case, like some of them get better, some of them don't. We don't know why. I've interviewed a lot of people over the last 10 years. I've even worked for holistic practitioners, and I've asked them, well, why don't we run tests? Well, like, what's going on? Like, why do you just have one supplement for thyroid? Like, is there anything else we can do? And they're really stumped. So, and then some people get worse on holistic treatment. I've seen many cases that started supplements and they felt better for 2 months and then they crashed. And I'll show you why this happens. So in the functional model, I took a course called Mastering the Thyroid from one of my mentors, Datis Karazian. And I took that certification course twice on mastering the thyroid using a functional model. And it makes so much sense. And what we do, in the practitioners learning that is, we start with physiology. And so I was sitting with a medical doctor, he was sitting to my left, and we were, in kindergarten kind of, we were just talking about the physiology. What are the 10 or 11 steps that make the thyroid work? And we're drawing out, here's the brain, and there's 2 steps there, and here's the thyroid, and here's the gut. And we're literally just drawing it out, kind of like we're in kindergarten. And the medical doctor, turns to me and was like, wow, isn't this great? And I'm like, yeah, this is amazing. And he's like, oh, we didn't learn this in medical school. And that was an eye-opening moment for me of choosing to take my entire career path into a functional approach. So I turned to him, kind of mouth, what? And what do you mean that you never learned this in medical school? What did you learn? I mean, we're under the impression that they go to school for all these years, like they know all this stuff. And he said, no, what we learned in medical school, this is really important. We learned the test that you run, the standard test that will be covered by insurance, right? And the standard meds to prescribe based on the numbers. That's what they learned in medical school. So the functional model, just because you're going to a medical doctor, don't assume that they really know what it is to be able to get to the root cause and figure out what's going on for you. It's not in the standard conventional model. That medical doctor would have to actually go out into functional trainings to be able to have the knowledge to be able to do this. So what we do is, we test all numbers. So there's about 11 tests. And we look at the process from the front to the finish, right? So there's a lot of different things involved: the brain, the gut, the liver. Certain nutrients are needed, though it's rare. There's an involvement in the immune system, the thyroid itself, right? Then the cells on the thyroid, then the receptors on the thyroid. There's several different steps, right? So we're looking at what is going on, what step is off. And once we understand that, it makes sense exactly how to hone in and support that step. So, somebody's thyroid issues might have, you get 10 different cases, they might have 10 different programs around the thyroid. So let's talk about the immune system for a minute, just so that you get the relevance of why just because something is holistic doesn't mean it's good for you. In fact, it could be dangerous. So what does this mean when your immune system is attacking your thyroid? Okay, actually I'm going to do this a little bit different. So here's your thyroid. It's kind of shaped like a butterfly. And what happens when you're autoimmune is you make targets where your immune system is telling your body to attack and damage your thyroid. So these are the targets, right? They're red flags. And what happens is your immune system pays attention, and so they go and they start damaging parts of the thyroid. So 9 out of 10 people that walk through our door are autoimmune. That means that the reason their thyroid isn't working is their immune system is damaging their thyroid for some reason or another. We're really great with autoimmune issues. I'm going to save that for a different video. So what happens when you put iodine into somebody who's autoimmune, iodine is actually what makes the thing that the immune system is attacking. So it produces more targets. So what you do for 9 out of 10 people when you prescribe iodine is you increase and ramp up the destruction of the thyroid. And at first, people feel better because as you destroy the thyroid hormones spill out into the bloodstream. So it's like taking a medication. You have all these thyroid hormones. You're like, I feel so good. I feel so good. I've got so many thyroid hormones now. But what happens is you crash because after the damage has been done, the thyroid hormone production decreases even more than it was before. So iodine is like gasoline to an autoimmune fire, right? So just because something is holistic does not mean it's good for you, does not mean it's safe, does not mean it's going to fix the problem, right? And there's a lot of practical reasons for every one of our clients that they swear they've tried everything, right? Except for functional. They swear they've tried everything, very quickly. I mean, within the first assessment process, we are able to explain to them, well, here's the physiology of what's going on. So here's why everything that you've tried hasn't worked. And the light bulb goes on for them. They're like, oh my gosh, this doesn't have to be a guessing game. Like, I can understand what's going on and how to fix it. So hopefully, this explanation gives you a good understanding of, functional is different. It's different than conventional, it's different than holistic, but it has a foothold in both, right? We don't negate science, we don't negate tests, we don't negate the scientific studies and literature. We're very up to date on all of that, and we don't just blindly follow or suggest natural things. In fact, we're a proponent for figuring it out scientifically and then being able to put together a comprehensive, integrative plan that's actually going to solve the problem. So thank you for listening. If you've got any further questions, please don't hesitate to ask. We really want to get the word out there about this. We're producing, medical miracles. We're stumping the medical doctors for the clients that are working with us. And, we work in tandem with their doctors, right, in teamwork to figure this out, to support people. And, this is the biggest passion of our life. It really is. We've given our life to providing hope for people and healing for people, right? So they get their lives back. This is talking about just physical healing, but the scope of what we do in Integrity Wellness is so far greater than this. This is just a little taste of our functional approach. We really are about having people create lives that they love. So it's like, once you're well, then what, And so we're just excited to share this. Please, get back to us if you have any questions. Thank you so much for your generous listening. I know I talked a lot, and this was, about 20 so minutes of your time. Well worth it if, it can make a difference for one life and for somebody that you know or yourself. Thank you again, and hope to talk to you soon.